Welcome back to Afri-CAN. If I asked you what is the number of children per woman in Bangladesh, would you say 7, 5, 2? When I was asked this, I said 7. Forgive my ignorance. The answer is 2. It was 7 in 1960. For me, that is a measure of the power of educating girls. And my guests today know all about this. They also know about the power of investing in girls' education from an economic growth perspective. According to the World Bank, a 1% increase in female education participation can result in a 0.3% increase in average gross domestic product and gains of up to $15 to $30 trillion in lifetime productivity and earnings. Educating girls is indeed a long-term investment. Girls become women who are the best stewards of family income, have a higher propensity to save, and are passionate entrepreneurs when given the opportunity. Africa boasts the highest rate of female entrepreneurial activity globally, with approximately 24% of women engaged in business ventures. Although Pharo Foundation is not focused on girls' education across all its schools, its Homosha Secondary School in particular is an island of educational excellence for girls only in the middle of the remote and poverty-stricken province of Benishangul Gumuz in Ethiopia. It is a free boarding school for girls only, which registered a 100% pass rate in grade 12 exams last year in a country where the national average is between 3 and 5% pass rate. The commitment of these girls to their education is exceptional, and we are very proud of them. Similarly, Malala Fund works to ensure all girls can access and complete 12 years of education. They focus on secondary school, grades 7 to 12 in particular, when gender discrimination most often causes girls to leave school. To highlight the critical impact of investing in girls' education today, I have Malala Fund's Saba Zewdu and Pharo Foundation's Milkyas Solomon. Saba manages Malala Fund's programmatic grant portfolio in Ethiopia, where she supports partners dedicated to advancing educational policies that enhance access to secondary school for girls in conflict-affected areas. Saba has been a passionate advocate for girls' rights, leveraging her expertise in various roles to create impactful change. Previously at the Young Women's Christian Association National Capital Area, the Freedom Fund, and Gebeya. Our second guest is Milkyas Solomon, who has been given a great responsibility today as a man invited to a discussion on girls' empowerment. I consider that a critical component of catalyzing change for women is to also have male figures that want to assist us in accessing the opportunities that we deserve. And Milkyas is one of the greatest male champions of female empowerment that I know. He is the Ethiopia Head of Education at Pharo Foundation. His research interests include curriculum, policy formulation, and policy analysis. He has authored papers on policy theories in Ethiopian education and the provision of single-sex versus co-educational schooling for girls. So, without further ado, let's kick off the questions. I'm going to address my first set of questions to Saba, but Milkyas, feel free to chip in. What are some projects, Saba, that Malala Fund is supporting through grantee partners?
Thank you so much for the wonderful opportunity, Francesca, and for the wonderful introduction as well. The Malala Fund right now and our new strategy, and we just actually hit the ground running in the beginning of April with our new 5-year strategy from 2025 to 2030. And our strategy specifically in Ethiopia now is to work towards securing girls' right in education in conflict-affected areas, as you've mentioned. There's been long-lasting internal conflict that has affected and continues to affect parts of Ethiopia, especially the Tigray, Amhara, and Oromia region. And right now we have over 8 million youth who are out of school, and half of them are girls, based off of recent studies. So our main focus right now in the next couple of years in our new strategy is to aim to enforce gender-responsive policies aimed at addressing barriers to girls' education and endorsing conflict sensitive policies, such as the Safe Schools Declaration. I'm not sure if this is a declaration that you're familiar with, but it's an intergovernmental political commitment to protect students, teachers, schools, and universities from worst effects of armed conflict when it begins. So we're really, really working towards, in the next 5 years, ensuring not only the direct services that we need for young girls on the ground, but ensuring that we're creating the right systems, for systemic change for young girls to break those barriers to education. We do have some existing partners right now currently aligned with this new strategy, and I'd love to highlight a few of them who we're working with currently. We have the NUA, who's the Network of Ethiopian Women's Association, and they're currently working on a Building Better Back plan. And this Building Better Back plan utilizes girls' agency. So we're mobilizing girls' voices on the ground, utilizing radio to bring awareness to the challenges girls faces. Oftentimes, young people aren't given a seat at the table when, policies are being created or even just change that needs to happen on the ground. So NUA really works towards using girls' voices to create that long-lasting impact, that long-lasting change, and demanding seats at high-level meetings for the young girls, for their voices to be heard. And we've seen it become really, really powerful, and not only at the tables that they're sitting at, voicing their challenges that they've been facing, but they're also being stewards of change in their communities as well, pushing young girls to go back to school, helping them to understand that there is power in their voices. And, they've just been doing amazing work. They'll be moving, we're hoping for them to be moving forward with us into our new strategy as well. But we have very dynamic partners on the ground. We have other partners such as Resources for Sustainable Change. They're working on creating girls' spaces in schools. Oftentimes we know that, young girls are not going to school for various reasons, right? There's challenges with gender-based violence. Child marriage is one of the huge barriers to girls' education. And even in my recent site visits, I was able to really see this work on the ground. They're working in the Sidama region, in a very rural part of the Sidama region in Ethiopia. And, we realized that even the smallest things, what we don't think are barriers to girls' education, like providing sanitary products for young girls, are not allowing girls to go to school. There's, research shows that almost 50%, 50 days, girls miss 50 days of schooling throughout the year because of these type of challenges. And we're working, our partners are working diligently on the ground to create partnerships. They've worked with other stakeholders to create reusable sanitary products for girls. Girls are even, creating just the agency in their communities to say, hey guys, this is normal. This is a part of life. We have the resources that we need. And this should not be the reason why, we're not going to school moving forward. And they've created safe spaces where young girls have, a very small room at a school where they come together and they talk about these small challenges, right? Or small yet big challenges that they face in their everyday lives to access schooling. And our partners are doing amazing work, and I can go on and on. Well, here we have currently 13 partners in our portfolio in Ethiopia who are doing amazing work, but this is just, just to name a few of our partners who are doing some great work.
Amazing. Actually, we had another episode where we invited yes, I think it was Rima products. I don't know if you've heard them, but they are a very innovative sort of organization that does these reusable sanitary products. I don't know if you came across them, but anyway, it just reminded me. But yeah, I think it's a critical aspect of girls' education. So second question is really on innovation, because originally our podcast is very much focused on how we innovate in development. And so I understand that Malala Fund takes an innovative approach to grant making. So I'd be very interested to hear, what is the ethos behind how you make grants in Ethiopia, and how in what sense, this is an innovative process, would you say?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I can honestly say I've worked for many development agencies, prior to coming on board with the Malala Fund, but I can say we use a very, very unique approach when it comes to grant making. Oftentimes, and of course, in the countries that we're working in, we really acknowledge the unique obstacles and situations that prevent girls from going to school. And one kind of you know, huge advantage to our grant making is we provide flexible funding to our grantees. We also, also go work through a trust-based approach with our partners. This means less restrictive grants, right? It allows partners to adapt to the evolving needs, for them to innovate and also build their organizational capacity to reach our North Star, which is policy advocacy on the ground, right? And this approach, and I've realized since I've been on board, and I've been on board almost 10 months now with the Malala Fund, that it truly fosters resilience and sustainability within the CSO landscape and the partners that um, we're working with. We've had times where, of course, in Ethiopia the past year, I think it's been almost 11 months now since, our currency has devalued. And this created a very, strong and pretty much negative impact on the work that a lot of our partners were doing. But luckily, we were able to just work very closely with our partners and help them to pivot in some of the situations where they thought they were stuck during the time of devaluation. A lot of our partnerships are not just, we say we work beyond the check. It's not about just signing a check to our grantees and ensuring that whatever that desired outcome is being successfully executed, but we really take heed and are extremely, we value partnerships, and we talk as if, we're talking to our family members. What are the things that we need to get done? Be transparent. We're very transparent with one another. Our partners are very open, and, we have multiple conversations, not just about the work that they're doing, but what are some external factors also that are happening on the ground that we need to start, kind of identifying in order for us to start filling those gaps, or create those mitigation plans ahead of time. So our partners are extremely, they know, with our partnership managers, and I'm not going to just say for Ethiopia, it goes across all boards in Brazil and Tanzania and Nigeria, Pakistan, Afghanistan. All of our partnership managers works towards a trust-based approach. And our grantees, honestly, I had our first partner convening last week, and one thing that they can honestly share with me was that they can always reach out to us when anything, if there was a bump in the road. They understood that they didn't have to be silent, that, they can share these type of challenges with us, and that we're going to work through it together. And I think, having that trust-based approach, working with our partners, not only saying, hey, where are you with this specific activity, but is there any way that I can support you? Luckily, I've lived in Ethiopia for 5 years prior to moving back to the United States, and understand the context. And, we share insights with one another. And I can say that, the innovative approach that we take, honestly, is making sure that, we are flexible, we're trust-based, and we help our partners pivot in any way that they need to during the project life cycle.
Very, very interesting. I mean, I think, more and more organizations are seeing the merits of this kind of approach. I think it's becoming a little bit more of a thing that you see, but it's still very much an innovation in my view, and a very necessary one. Um, Great. And then finally, how would you say that your lived experience as a professional of Ethiopian background has shaped how you approach your grant making work in Ethiopia today?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Francesca. I could honestly say it's similar to what I mentioned earlier. My grant making approach isn't just about giving the money. It's about investing in the inherent capacity and vision of Ethiopian civil society. And that's what we're doing here at the Malala Fund, is we're strengthening civil society organizations to carry this work forward, to carry our North Star forward. And not to mention, I have this, deep-rooted understanding of my country's context, and it's the work that we do is beyond the reports, right? I think, taking this post, I realized that I had the firsthand experience and understand the resilience, right, and the cultural nuances and those day-to-day realities that go beyond the statistics. Even coming here for my site visits, sometimes some of the site visit summaries that can't really fully capture the kind of the nuances, right, of the work that we do here. And I would say that my background, just living in Ethiopia for the past 5 years as well, understanding the context really helps me in this regard. So it allows me to approach proposals and partnerships with a more intuitive grasp, honestly. What really works on the ground? What are the challenges that might be overlooked? How can local dynamics influence our project success? So I'm not just looking at numbers, but what are we doing exactly to create cultural sensitive impacts in Ethiopia with the Malala Fund? How are we really addressing the needs of the young girls on the ground? How are we addressing the needs of these civil society organizations in the work that we're doing? So um, how I'm supporting my partners is to, think of everything beyond the check, right? And I ask myself often, is this partnership really pouring into a sustainable future for our country, right? Are we really working towards resiliency, community resiliency? And for me, I think as an Ethiopian, a first generation Ethiopian, I was actually born and raised in the US, but moved back because I knew that I had this very strong tie with my country. It's not just about education, right? It's about unlocking potential and honestly shifting what's possible for my little sisters in Ethiopia. Understanding that, the work that I've done in my past and the experiences that I've had, I need to pay that forward. I need to share that with, the communities that we work in Ethiopia. So that's what we do. We share experiences in this regard. And I can humbly and boldly say that the Malala Fund prides ourselves in hiring staff whose passion and purpose is to ensure girls have the opportunity to lead, learn, and thrive in the future. And I think just loving my country, being here, understanding the context has really given it a different feel. Yeah.
Amazing. Okay, so let's move on now to Milkyas, who's been quiet. Let's hear from you, Milkyas. So, prior to your role as Ethiopia Head of Education at Pharo Foundation, you worked as a deputy head of school and secondary school principal. How would you say your experience with education and serving within the school system has shaped how you think about your work now and also how you approach girls' education?
Thank you, Francesca. I think honestly, for me, I was like a frontliner. I was a teacher, trained as physics teacher, and later on I became principal for only girls education center. So probably we don't have many single or separate schools in Ethiopia right now. These are quite few in number. So I led one of these schools, maybe for 7 years. So it gave me the right experience how education could be approached. So girls education has become my interest since then, and even I did extended research on that. So how girls are educated, how we can gap this the space in academic achievement as well as in resilience, and how there is a strong stereotyping feeling within even in subject areas also. So this is really a point of interest for me because I was educating girls science, maths and physics. So this is a very special scenario for me, and I lived that experience, and these girls were really bright up and they did a really good job and because they were separated. So that was my interest to study this area. And then I did that research and I found out these girls were really, hampered through the environment, through the different influences which is coming from the opposite sex, especially for high school level. And that was really hampering their education attainment. So these girls were achieving highest in all these subject areas, in mathematics, physics, science, and they were even pursuing in engineering and related areas, which is not common in core education areas. So my research usually focused on this type of sections within the controlled environment of the same schooling patterns. So that research was the base for me to pursue that policy area. In our education policy, it says inclusive education, but contextually and in reality, we have to do something about it. So we don't have currently many separated schools for girls in Ethiopia when the gap is high. So we have to do something about that. So my research was focused on that, and I was advocating that. And it's not only in the context of affirmative action. That's only perceived idea. Girls could do better if they're really understood better. So a teacher who teaches them separately will understand them better, then will give them the provision they need. So there is some kind of, stereotypic attitude. They cannot make this type of activities. They are for liberal arts, girls could do better in law school, etc. But they could do better, they could do best in engineering, in science, in all rigorous sciences. And so once the opportunity is given, they could do best. But later on, I did this type of analysis when the point I joined Pharo Foundation, because one of my inspiration was the girls' education promotion. This one is a different scenario where the girls were, situated in one place, all of them living together, building some kind of culture. So that is really inspirational for me. No, this one is a different dynamics where the girls were in controlled environment, where all access for education is quality is delivered and what they're feeling. So we did that also analysis with the girls. For them, Homosha is a beacon, a place where they can sail all the tides. So they are very strong. Whenever you question them about what their leadership goal in the society could be, they're very strong.
I
They
can
are,
vouch for that.
yeah, they are very strong. They do have a direction ahead for them, and they could push study different areas. So for some of the girls, they were counseling me to join, asking me what happens if we study material science, engineering, okay? And they're ready to do this, to explore these areas. Not only the liberal arts, they are ready to do that. And when they talk about their experiences in that school, they're really excited. That space gave them the opportunity to lead, practically lead. So that's what we need. So this, if you study that area, most of the girls starting from age 14, 15, they're going to support, they will be going through forced marriage, arranged marriage, and etc. So even the girls attending those schools in different areas in that region will be dropping out. So if you study the national statistics, the dropping out is really alarming. So these girls, they have real problem ahead of them if they're not attending to that school of this type of arranged marriage and etc. So we are saving a generation. What we do for those girls, it's beyond the numbers. I came from science background. I'm good at in mathematics. But if you study qualitatively these girls, they do have so many stories to tell. These girls are joining universities in Ethiopia and across Europe. They have a clear view where they're going and where they're ending up. So now, for me, we're changing the society, the community, about the approach how girls could be educated about it. So I'm pro to this type of schooling because I have sensed it, I've grasped it, and I know how it could do best. Of course, in some natural ways, we can have co-education centers and etc. But practically, it is eye-opening for me.
What is your sort of view on that, Saba? Is the same-sex education a particularly effective sort of environment in which to empower girls?
I honestly think, and I was reading up on the Homosho School, and I think it's a very brilliant way to really bring about empowerment in the community for young girls. Honestly, working for the YWCA as well, I helped to design and work through our Empower Girls program. It was exclusively for young girls. It was an in-school based program, and I saw the benefits that it had when you had exclusively, a space for young girls, right? Let alone a school, a boarding school where they're together 24/7. They're learning from one another, creating that family-like dynamic with the young girls. And I can only imagine how each and every one of those young girls, how they feel day to day, going to school, leaving school, being with their sisters. And I think, Absolutely. I think it's a huge advantage to have girl exclusive schools, honestly, especially in a country like Ethiopia where young girls, their voices aren't being heard, or because of the many barriers there are to girls' education, they're not even accessing education in any way, shape, or form. Young girls are being married at a very, very young age. I think it's statistics show that 40% are married before the age of 18, and they're not able to go to school. So having this type of this space where young girls can really exercise their rights and their voice is dynamic. It's amazing.
Amazing. Great. So I guess my final question is sort of to both of you. What do you think are some of the things that funds and foundations should take into account in their work to support Ethiopian activists and programs in this area of girls' education? Maybe Milkyas, you want to kick it off?
Thank you. I think first we have to understand the context. What are we doing right now? So there are many NGOs functioning in Ethiopia for so many years, and some of them even they are doing the same philosophies, they are doing the same things, but practically not connecting one another, and they are expending a lot of investment, but bringing no change. So first we have to understand what's really happening. What does a society need? And we have to understand the context, and we have to acknowledge the local knowledge as well. So there is a huge cultural gap between the NGOs coming and the local entities. So we have to understand what the locality feels about all our programs. What does it do? Because there is, culturally, there is a strong bond between a child and a family. And whenever there is some kind of arrangement, what we are doing as NGO, it should be always communicated and properly addressed with the community. And second, we have to invest in people. As educator, I feel I'm not like a brick person, building structures and etc. No, I feel we have to invest a lot in people. So girls, when they're funded, when they're given these opportunities to study, they have to be given the proper education. It's not about head counting. All the numbers will tell you primary education is covered 96%, and all the numbers are high and high. But are we delivering quality education? What the education demands? No, we are not doing that. So we have to invest in education, in people, in the girls. So it should be directly deployed to them. And also, we have to have, a flexible approach. Whenever these grants are coming, it should not be like structured bridge system. We have to have a mechanism at least to acknowledge the realities in the environment. What do they need? And we have to accord those type of funds in such a way. And finally, as I mentioned earlier, measurements are ambiguous at some point. This type of changes are beyond numbers, because we are dealing about education of a child. So each child matters. So it's not about the statistics of the percentage. So that has to stop. A girl, change it, hard, educated, given the opportunity to be better and changed person will change the society. So each girl matters. So for me now, all this approach should shift and has to shift. It's not about the magnitude, but we have to focus on the quality. And each girl matters. And finally, we have to do that diligently, because education has, for me, the longest gestation period. A person usually takes 9 months to give birth, but education takes like 15 years at least, minimum. So it's the longest way, and it needs patience. So we have to be, all the NGO activities are project-based. Education, it doesn't work that way. We need proper programs which could extend with this lifelong purpose. So each child matters, and we should always invest in longer programs than project-based approach.
Great words of wisdom there. Saba, go ahead.
No, absolutely. I think I echo everything Milkyas has mentioned, and I think earlier I touched based on the importance of flexible funding, the importance of trust-based approach, and just even from a donor's perspective, I think one thing what makes me incredibly proud about working with the Malala Fund as well is our commitment to investing in nascent organizations. We, in the next 5 years, have a target of funding 20% girl-led and women-led organizations, right? That's, something that we really need to take heed, especially when it comes to girls' education or just, working in the communities that we're working in. Many times donors shy away, right? When it comes to new organizations, but we boldly believe in the power of young girls, just like Malala, right? Who are poised to overcome development challenges and lead from local to global change. And I think, Milkyas touched base on many of it. I think it's so important to stray away from the one-size-fit-all approach and really be flexible when we're working and investing in girls' education, understanding that, like Milkyas mentioned earlier, it's not just about, the literacy rates. Like, girls' education will improve if we're also working on the holistic aspect of girls' education, right? Making sure that they're also mentally stable to be in school, that they have the proper resources to be in school, that we're investing in the teachers, right? In the communities that we're working in. And I think, it's really, really important for us to think beyond the numbers. I think it's so important for us to take that qualitative approach and say, hey, like, what does this look like? What does it look like in Ethiopia? And also just share it. Like, I think Milkyas touched point on it earlier as well. Even in Ethiopia, I think it's just very important for us to really invest in girls' education, for us to come work together, right? It's so important. Collaboration is the key to making sure that we really reach these young girls and boys the way that we need to, and making sure that civil societies are not duplicating efforts, but they're working together in order to really reach our desired outcomes and quality outcomes. So I think, we've mentioned them all, but it's an ever-changing world that we're living in right now. Just the context of Ethiopia, there's things changing. Of course, the U.S. aid freeze has been a huge hit to our country, and it's now more than ever that we need to lean on one another, honestly, in partnerships, in resource sharing, resource mobilization, sharing insights, experiences with one another in order for us to really reach these young people.
Agreed. As director of comms and partnerships, I'm 100% with you. It's the only way at the moment. I think, this crisis has opened a sort of window of opportunity for philanthropy to step in a bigger way. But it will not happen unless we actually work with each other. It's a scale concern. Brilliant. It was an amazing discussion. Thank you so much to both of you. I'm sure we will take up more of this discussion in a different setting, but it's been wonderful to have you both.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Yes, it's such a pleasure.
Thank you, Saba. Thank you, Francesca.